Hello, everyone. My name is Pavel Kaminsky. I'm founder and CEO of 7Security, and I'm a QSA. I live in Sofia, but travel a lot. Actually, I used to travel a lot. Now I live in Sofia, and I'm an active QSA, but I have to be a CEO as well. My topic is there is no such thing as PCI DSS certification. Everyone is talking about PCI DSS certification. We are forced to use that expression as well, but it doesn't exist, so let's see why and what it's all about. A few words about us. So 7Security is a QSA company, qualified security assessor, founded in 2014. We are operating in Europe and CEMEA, and we have in-house implementation and penetration testing teams, and we are focusing on and specializing on startups. So let's say around 80% of our customers were doing their PCI DSS for the first time with us. PCI DSS is a payment card industry data security standard. This is the standard which is applicable to any company which either stores, transmits, or processes the cardholder data. So if a company just transmits it, it's already enough. The standard is created and disseminated by PCI DSS Security Standards Council, which was formed by 5 major payment brands or payment schemes, card schemes. This is a very good example in history when competitors actually create one standard so companies can comply to that standard and be able to work with all of them. And of course, some smaller card schemes also usually are accepted. If you can see, as you can see on the screen, the standard is very comprehensive. So almost entire information security is covered there. It has 12 groups of the requirements. The first group is about network security, firewalls, open ports, and so on. The second one is about system hardening configuration standards in secure protocols, ports. The third one is about storage, how you store the cardholder data, about encryption. The first one is about transmission, how you transmit it, TLS, VPNs, and so on. The fifth is about anti-malware or antivirus malware protection. The sixth is about software development, change management, vulnerability management, patching, web application firewalls, and so on. The seventh is about business need to know how you govern access to the data. The eighth one is about access control, so how you govern that access technically, about user IDs, passwords, multi-factor authentication, and so on. The ninth is about physical security, logs, video surveillance, and others. The 10th is about logging and monitoring, how you log the data, how you log access, how you log security events, how you store the logs, how you monitor integrity on the logs. The 11th is about security testing, vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, intrusion detection systems, file integrity monitoring, and so on. And 12th is a cornerstone of any information security program, information security governance. How you do risk assessment, how you do acceptable use policies, management of service providers, incident response, disaster recovery, and so on. Almost the entire information security is here, but there is nothing about the certification. Let's see what happens if you are not compliant. If you're compliant, it's obvious. But what can be if you are not compliant and there is a breach? So security breaches cost a lot for companies. They can probably be suspended from processing payment cards, or their fees can get higher. There probably will be non-compliance fees, some forensic investigation costs, because usually a breached company has to hire a PFI, payment forensic investigator, that has to come to their office to check the compliance with that 12 group of the requirements, how they implemented it, not their certificates, but how it was implemented in the company. There are some card reissuance fees that are possible. For example, banks, after a breach, probably sometimes, for example, me, I'm getting calls from my bank to come to the bank and get a new card for free just because there was a breach somewhere. For me, it's free, but someone should pay it. And banks, of course, are not happy to do it for free. So they will probably chase card schemes to get some money for that. And there are some breach notification costs that could arise according to the legislation and so on. It's important to understand that the standard is a single standard for all the all the card schemes, but every payment brand has its own compliance program. So if there are all specific questions actually should be addressed to them. So they define forensic investigation procedures. They are responsible for the compliance enforcement and so on. Let's talk what you have to do in order to be compliant. So first you have to implement all of the 12 group of the requirements. Let's say not all of them, but all applicable to you. And after that, you have to report your compliance. There are several ways to do it. Actually, there are two ways: to report it with a ROC, report on compliance, or to report it with a SAQ, self-assessment questionnaire. The ROC should be prepared by a QSA after an on-site assessment. SAQ could be done by you, or QSA can participate in it. And at the end, you have to create an AOC, attestation of compliance. The standard has two types of entities, merchants and service providers. So the difference is obvious. Yeah? You are a merchant if you're selling your goods or services and accept credit cards, payment cards. And you are a service provider if you provide that service for merchants. So usually merchants are customers of service providers. Service providers have two levels only, 1 and 2. The first level has to report with ROC, a long report around 250-300 pages long, and the second level can report with SAQ, self-assessment questionnaire, and optionally QSA can be involved. For merchants, there are 4 levels, and again, only the first level has to report with ROC by QSA. The report on compliance is a long document, around 250-300 pages long, and it includes descriptions about the implementations of all that controls. There are around 360 controls in its full scope and around 1,000 testing procedures. So your QSA has to prepare it for you after the on-site assessment. It used to be after the on-site assessment. Now it's possible to do it remotely, temporary, I think. SAQ is a self-assessment questionnaire. It includes absolutely same requirements. So your responsibility is same. You have to implement the standard. The difference is only in the report. In SAQ, you only have check boxes. Yes, no, not applicable, and so on. And there is a way that QSA company can validate your SAQ by checking the implementation. And in both cases, at the end, you have to create an AOC, attestation of compliance, which is about 20 pages long, which represents an executive summary of what you actually did and what is your implementation of PCI DSS. Again, in case of ROC, QSA creates it for you. In case of SAQ, you can create it. You have to create it. And there is no any certificate. So if you see any nice pictures on the walls and so on, it doesn't work. You should not accept it as any proof of any compliance. Of course, we also create nice certificates because all of the customers want them, but it's just not a formal document. Just to recap, so PCI DSS, your responsibility is to implement the standard, and your responsibility is to report the standard via either ROC by QSA or SAQ, and so on. Your compliance is based on level and type. Your level is based on number of transactions that you process, and type is based on the integration with your service providers or how you handle the cardholder data. Depending on the type, you have to implement from 20 to 360 controls. And depending on the level, you have to do either ROC or SAQ. And some common myth that I see in my practice, let's say we don't have enough card transactions to require compliance. That's not true, because even one transaction is already enough. So you have to comply to PCI DSS. We outsource card processing, so we are compliant. That's not true as well. We even have customers who are issuers and acquirers. So they issue cards, you can order a card, use it, you can use their payment gateway for your shop, and so on. And they don't have any IT system in scope, so they outsource everything. In that case, they have to implement the requirement 12. If you remember, it's about information security governance. They still have to do risk assessment. They still have to manage their service providers properly, because they have to check their compliance. So this is their data, and they have to outsource it to compliant places, to compliant providers. They have to implement incident response procedures, and so on. PCI is an IT issue? Obviously not, and usually organizations that consider it just an IT and let's give it to IT guys, they will do it, they will usually fail, yeah, because it's there are many policies, procedures that should be implemented across the organization. PCI is unreasonable difficult. I would not say so, depending on the implementation. So I think that it's always better to do a smaller procedure, a shorter policy, but to make sure that everyone follows that. PCI certificate allows us to store card data. So there are two problems here. Yeah, first, there is no PCI DSS certificate. It doesn't allow you anything. And second, compliance does not allow you to store the data. Business need allows you to store the data. And after that, everything else happens. And we are not a target, which is obviously wrong as well, because small merchants, even small merchants, are a target, because hackers install some JavaScript on their website and just take the copy of the cardholder data without being noticed for many years. So any company, I would say, especially in e-commerce, is a target, especially small companies. Thank you very much. Keep calm and get compliant.